human race.
Transhumanism is a key driver of the supposed fourth industrial revolution. You see a lot of these people in Silicon Valley favoring what is obviously a technocratic system, where there's a class of technocrats who get to decide everything and you just have to live with it, and they're just telling you it's for the greater good.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. That's simply and I want to be clear that these are not things that I wish would happen. These are
ours is a brand new world of all at once.
Global village is not created by the motor car or even by the airplane. You have extreme concern with everybody else's business and much involved in everybody else's life. It's a sort of Ann Landers column writ large. And it doesn't necessarily mean violence. Why? But it does mean huge involvement in everybody else's affairs. And so the global village is as big as a planet and as small as
Triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk is preserved
It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context.
Go.
Humans who are limited by slow biological evolution could compete and would be superseded.
this time frame is not relevant to AI. You can't take 10 years from the point at which it's dangerous. It's too late. It could be terrible, and it could be great. It's not clear.
Right.
Hello, everybody.
sure
It's
we will not
Monday,
control it.
December 5th. Chapo coming at you. And look, we've got a huge guest for you today. I'll just begin like this. Exciting things are happening in the world of free speech. And so, joining us now is the man of the hour, a man fighting against government and corporate regulation of the digital commons. It is an honor and a privilege to converse across the mind realm with humanity's greatest genius, Elon Musk. Elon, welcome to the show.
Thanks. That's like pretty decent introduction, I have to say. With
Exciting things are happening in the world of free. And so, joining us now is the man of the hour, a man fighting against government and corporate regulation of the digital commons. It is an honor and a privilege to converse across the mind realm with humanity's greatest genius, Elon Musk. Elon, welcome to the show.
thanks. That's like pretty decent introduction, I have to say. With more introductions like that, I'm going to have to start following you and replying to your tweets.
Oh, wow. Just from your lips to God's ears, Elon, if I could get a follow, I would love to converse with you more on the newly liberated platform of Twitter.
From my thin lips to the ears of Ares, Mars, the god of war and blood. I agree with you. You know, let's not forget that Azalea Banks, she criticized me for having pork skin, but I put a lot of money into engineering this pork skin, and it's going to last a lot longer than regular human birth skin organs. So ultimately, the joke is going to be on Azalea. I'm sorry.
Well, look, comedy has made a comeback on Twitter. Free speech has made a comeback on Twitter. But obviously,
Sure.
there are people
Correct.
who have criticized you since your takeover of Twitter, and there have been media reports that claim there has been an exponential increase in so-called hate speech since you took over. My question is, why have those same journalistic sources not discussed the similar rise in love speech on your platform?
Well, I think it's very obvious. Like, you might be on the left. I considered myself like kind of a moderate centrist leftist for a long time. And what has seemed to happen is that I'm the center, and then like the left has moved so far left. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm like still over here with like all these guys that are like standard, great, like liberal voices like Ben Shapiro, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Jordan Peterson, he's a doctor that's liberal. And I just think that like this is the real left. And Ian Miles Chong, he's still great. He's still left, What's wrong with what used to be liberal?
Well, I mean,
and when it comes to comedy, I'd like to dissect it like within my engineering mind. I would like to approach the problem of comedy with the mind of a space engineer, which is kind of how I like to approach things. So like when I decided to buy and destroy Twitter, I wanted to lean into what I think is funny. And first and foremost, what I think is funny is like humor, like an engineer would enjoy, like rocket calculations and Dilbert kind of shit. Memes are great like that because memes are comedy that are accessible because you don't have to laugh out loud at them. And I prefer this kind of comedy that consists of like a right-wing guy screaming about what comedy should be. To me, that's like totally LMA my fucking ass off. You know what I'm saying? Oh, P.S. I don't know if you noticed, but I changed the like button from blue to red. That was a great idea. And people said you could just go in and change the code, but I fired those guys. So what we went in with like radioactive material and bombarded them with subatomic particles in order to change the like button from blue to red. So
well,
it was a roundabout way to do it, but ultimately it's more structurally sound that way.
That is rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off, thinking about these blue hair pronoun people having to deal with a real businessman in charge. No more safe spaces here on Twitter. But I do want to mention this is probably the most notable thing that's happened on Twitter recently. Could you explain the process that led to you suspending the account of Kanye West after he posted a swastika last week?
Kanye was important. He's important because he's famous, and people understand that I'm a great engineer, but also like an important part of being a great engineer is allowing yourself to be kind of stupid. And so you have to be, you can't be constantly thinking of algorithms, thinking of aerodynamics and wave dynamics and so forth for engineering projects. You have to also let your mind turn off and be like, I'm a dumb guy and I'm just swayed by famous people and it's cool to hang out at the Met Gala. And so there's right brain, left brain in most people, but thanks to Neuralink, I have engineer brain and meme brain. And so I've got to turn off my engineer brain and let the meme brain run sometimes. And then what is involved in it is just going like, yeah, Kanye's famous and whatever he says is cool. And that was how it started. And then it got out of control a little bit. Started getting some phone calls from some of my handlers. KSA was not too happy about the way that particular experiment was going. They said pull the plug, and started to hurt the price of my Dogecoin investments. So I had to pull the plug on that one, and just he was being too Nazi, and it's bad for advertisers. And so basically we're monitoring the advertisers, and there's obviously a certain baseline level of National Socialism that Twitter advertisers are okay with, or you wouldn't have seen so many Nazis on the platform for so many years. And obviously, we're not getting rid of that.
You mentioned Neuralink. I want to talk about Neuralink for a second. You're doing great stuff for free speech on Twitter, but you're also, at the cutting edge of torturing monkeys. What are some exciting things we can expect from Neuralink? And will you have you claim to have, you will have the Neuralink chip installed in your brain at some point as well? What we can expect to see from?
It's important. I think everybody understands that the human brain is a problem that needs to be engineered with technology. And obviously people are tired of overwhelming thoughts and this world that we live in and so forth. And Neuralink can really, it's so much easier and simpler from an engineering point of view. like if you have software, if you have a Tesla and it goes bleep bloop and it says you've got to download this new software in order to stop for this school bus. And it's easier that way because you just go approve software update. You don't have to question yourself and go, wow, is Bernie Sanders too far left? Should I actually, like, I'm a Democrat, but I don't know. I don't like these homeless people, and I don't want to research whether rent prices should come down anywhere ever. And so maybe I should vote for Rick Caruso. We don't want people to be confronted with, like, difficult moral struggles like this, but to be able to just have it like a software update, like beep. And we might sort of benevolently interfere with human attraction, sexual attraction in that way through Neuralink. And also, we just want people to have their political opinions become like slowly a little bit more kind of like libertarian talk radio kind of shit, like the kind of stuff that you would already hear on any kind of like right-wing comedy thing that's for dumb people like Barstool Sports or whatever.
I did read in certain media reports. I don't know if these are currently Twitter approved media sources, but I did read that upon having the Neuralink chip installed in their brains, several of your monkey test subjects chewed their fingers off. Is this not LOL, or is this rolling on the floor laughing my ass off?
You can't make a simian superspecies without breaking some DNA structures, and that's just basic. Like, we're taking some fingers off of the monkeys because they were trying to rip the chips out of their heads, and that would have defeated the entire experiment. And if you're not familiar with monkeys, they've got 4 hands, so if they lose a few fingers, they've got many ways of being able to continue to feed themselves for 2 or 3 weeks before we allow them to pull the assisted suicide lever in their cages.
Well, I mean, Neuralinking Twitter to your brain sounds like a really exciting thing that I'm looking forward to.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go here. I've got to celebrate some of the victories here. We're going to we've actually gotten more impressions on Twitter today than the entire impressions combined of Twitter for the entire 3-month run leading up to the purchase and the liberation of Twitter. So I was going to celebrate, if you don't mind. I'm opening a little bottle of champagne.
Oh, please, go ahead.
And I can share this with you virtually, obviously. But I thought I would celebrate some of my recent victories with a special bottle I've been keeping of South African sparkling wine. It's from the year of my birth, 1971. And it's a Cap Classique Stellenbosch from Cape Town, a.k.a. Boer Brut. It's got extremist Southern Hemisphere notes with a hint of emerald and a clownish aftertaste. And it's one I've enjoyed. And so when I have these great victories that I've declared for myself, I just like to I'm just trying to open it now. It's 80,000 Rand per bottle. And I'm gonna, hold on. It's just a nice little, I corked it. I corked the Cap Classique. Okay, all right, everyone's fired. Okay, come back. I've corked my South African wine. Okay, there's obviously an easy solution here. There's an engineering fix to any problem. And if you cork a bottle of champagne, you might say that's a little hard because, hey, the cork on a champagne is kind of designed for that not to be able to happen. But look, any problem that comes up, sometimes you've got to make it a little bit worse before you make it better. I can easily we're going to rig a micro submarine with a boring tunneling cone to retrieve the cat from inside the champagne bottle. Wait. No. Guys! It's shattered all over the floor. This is too bad. This is my Stellenbosch reserve, and it's all over the floor of Twitter. I have an idea. We will siphon the remaining wine in particles from the floor and absorb what is salvageable and squeeze it all into a French press and remove most of the glass and tell everybody that it's the coolest glass of wine and... Well, it's a glass of wine and also glass, and it's the coolest thing that they'll ever experience.
Elon, thank you for all your efforts to save Western civilization, to bore tunnels in both in our minds and underground, and just send humanity to space. Just keep it going. And also, more than anything, thank you so much for cracking down on people doing impressions of public figures.
It's so great to talk to like sensible center-left voices like you. Left-wing moderates like Tim Pool, like Kyle Rittenhouse, and
Absolutely.
let me taste this champagne.
Civil debate.
It's like great. It's good.
That's a big LMAO for me. Elon, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I don't know if you know how valuable my time is, but don't worry. I'll charge you. It'll come out of your future credits and debits.
Okay, we are back. Thanks again to Elon Musk for joining us.
Them that whatever you're doing now, whatever feels good to you right now, is what you should be doing, and that's great. Everybody will find that, and which one they pick is really going to come down to just individual aesthetic preferences, the community they find themselves among, and that's going to be the extent of it. I mean, he says he wants to make people to like realize they're in the Truman Show. Well, then what? Just tell each other. Just post about how they're on the fucking Truman Show. Just tell each other that, well, now that I know, I'm going to let everybody else know. Even though me knowing just led me to do what I was doing anyway. I didn't change a goddamn thing about what I do with my life now that I know. I'm going to tell everybody else, assuming that if enough of us know, we're all going to change our behavior, even though none of us have.
What is the conservative version of what will your role be after the revolution? I guess
we're all going to be yeoman farmers.
I'm
right?
going to be, I'm going to be a therapist that helps people deal with their trauma of being in public school.
No, you know what they're going to do? They're all going to be yeoman farmers. They're all going to have like 40 acres. They're going to have a barefoot and pregnant wife. They're going to go out and plow their fields and come home to a big country breakfast in the metaverse. It's going to be Stardew fucking Valley. That is going to be their.
Great.
That's going to be their blood and soil fantasy that they're going to get to live out.
I can't wait for the culture war between the people who are living in the Chaz multiverse.
Exactly. It's
the Chaz multiverse.
It's going to be like
the
Mayberry,
Marxist Leninist,
the Mayberry metaverse, the Chaz metaverse. Everyone's going to be. Then they're going to have to fight each other because you need conflict to resolve. To resolve the anxiety and the misery of knowing that at the end of the day you're still on the fucking computer.
Well, yeah, okay. So there's going to be the Chaz metaverse. There'll be the ML one where somehow everyone is designing uniforms for the Red Army. The based metaverse, and then there's still going to be like a Club for Growth, like Mitt Romney metaverse. But then there has to be one big one, like the last shared space in America. It will be basically like the Spanish Civil War of the metaverse, where all these sides fight.
And I gotta say, look, if anyone wants smoke with the Chapo metaverse and the upcoming meta cultural war, just know that I have spent just months preparing by strafing thousands upon thousands of meta John Candies with meta Gatling guns from A10 Warthogs. I've been strafing John Candy's positions in the metaverse with brutal and lethal efficiency. So if the mold bug metaverse wants smoke, we got it.
I went into the shared metaverse to do combat with Michael Anton, who's in a mech suit, and my equipment load was too high, and I fat rolled through the floor, and now I'm just clipping underneath the metaverse for eternity. It really sucks.
The Q metaverse is going to be the fun one because that'll just be shooting celebrities in the face.
The Q metaverse
like GTA in at the Oscars.
The Q metaverse is amazing. Oh my god, that's the real Matrix. Like the stuff in like the ML or Chaz or like based metaverse is just like it's imitations of different lives people have lived that just aren't really remembered even. But the Q metaverse is going to be like, the best operator of the day gets the sacred crystal that Winston Churchill's soul is trapped inside of. You're the citizen of the day because Ryan O'Neal visited you in your dream and told you had to execute Celine Dion. That will be amazing. Well, maybe that sure is like, people are like, oh, it's Brave New World. No, it's 1984. It's a combination of everything, but the thing that is the biggest part
of the future is equilibrium. Because like you just have a license to everything. Even when you own a movie, that just means you have like a license to watch the digital copy that they can change.
Oh my God! So all art will be illegal.
Right?
They'll come to your house and burn it.
They're gonna change it all the time. Like they're gonna be like, they'll destroy your copy of Uncle Buck. And they'll be like, no, the digital version, it's better. It's like 180 billion p. Don't you want to see it like in high definition?
Don't you want to stream it?
Yeah, don't you want to stream Uncle Buck in 380 frames a second? And it's like, yeah. But then you realize that they've changed the movie because Uncle Buck, he's like very similar in personality to the people who stormed the Capitol in the terrorist attack of January 6th.
Yeah.
And they've edited scenes where Uncle Buck does a statement of harm. But you're like, fuck, this sucks. Like, I don't care that it's 380 frames a second. I don't care.
Digital John Candy, his soul, which is now owned by the algorithm. He's not dead. It's just like a computer has like basically copied the neural networks of John Candy's brain, and he will appear to you in the metaverse on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise and do a land acknowledgement before a screening of the new version of Uncle Buck, which you'll be paying. You'll have to put a digital token into the metaverse token slot if you want to watch another, like every 5 minutes. If you want to find out how Uncle Buck ends, you will have to continue to rent the John Candy's digital enslaved soul.
Yeah, and that'll be like the new like status symbol if you're PMC. It's like, oh yeah, no, I let my girlfriend have my password to John Candy's soul.
They're cracking down on that though.
Yeah,
because only one household will be allowed to have access to John Candy's soul, and you can you can torture him for eternity, or you can be nice to him for eternity,
or you can get bored halfway through and do the other one.
And there's like a Vox article 5 years into the soul renting program that's like, 68% of people chose to be nice to him for eternity. And it's like, if that doesn't show that like people are good,
And then, of course, they figure out, like, what do people end up wanting to do with John Candy? And wouldn't you know it, you have to pay more to do certain things. Like it costs, a couple 100,000 credits to make him be in all of his movies for everyone streaming, but in every one of them, he is wearing his barf costume from Spaceballs.
Okay, the bar premium tier.
No, yeah, that's high end.
To access the barf skin.
The barf skin's one of the most expensive items in the entire,
metaverse.
Steam library there.
So the sense offenders are going to be people who own physical copies.
Yep.
Yes.
Who like you can't change their Uncle Buck, but like for everyone else, like we're going to introduce something that we should have done a long time ago. It's like the perfect thing for America. And you're going to have like ranks for how good you are at watching TV and movies.
Oh God, you're right.
Okay,
oh my God,
I'm loving this system.
Fuck.
I'm loving this system. I'm the best.
No,
at
that's
it.
100% true. Because like the last frontier for any escape from, total drudgery is if you can comment on shit effectively. So you got to incentivize that.
Because everything is going to be like online games where it's like, there's skins and there's like tiers of shit you can buy. And like, if you're a real nerd, you go into the console and you like fuck with it. But the thing that it's missing is the gamification is like the rank.
Yes.
And if you're like, just take like the CSGO ranks, if you're a global elite Ted Lasso watcher, you made all the right comments. You like your TV sees you like cry at the right times, but not crying in a way that makes it about you if you're a man.
Yep.
And accepting of your vulnerability. But if you're a silver, it means that you get some things. Obviously, you're like, oh wow, Ted is like letting he's being passive for once. It's not even like he has to be the hero and use his white male privilege for his advantage. He is literally just stepping aside and not making himself the subject. But then you do something awful, like you sexualize some of the women on the show. And it's like, that's why you're a silver. You suck. Fuck you.
And the Supreme Court will rule that employers are allowed to consider your viewing rankings when making hiring decisions.
And then, people are like, well, it's a workplace safety issue.
Yeah,
I don't want to be endangered
I don't
by
feel
a
safe around
silver.
white men who don't understand the Ted Lasso message.
Right. Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns computers. There's one in my house, one in my pocket, and one on my wrist. And fun fact, if they all broke at the same time, I'd die. More specifically, we're going to talk about the fact that we've all had unsettling moments when it became clear that our computer was monitoring our activities a little more closely than we might like.
After financial planner Rod Lorenz opened a new office, he used a credit card to buy baby wipes to clean the place. He says after picking up just one canister, he was shocked to be bombarded with targeted online ads for other baby wipes and more children's products, something this single guy around town says he's definitely not interested in, at least not now.
Yeah, it's true. Poor Rod got roped into the modern update of Hemingway's classic story, For Sale, Baby Shoes, Click Here. And look, of course Rod didn't want that shit. He was a man about town. He was only interested in three things: getting laid, getting paid, and rocking the hell out of some wraparound shades. But we have all found ourselves being targeted by ads for something oddly specific and thought, how on earth did they know to show me that? And tonight, we're going to talk about who makes that possible. Data brokers. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry encompassing everyone from credit reporting companies to these weird people-finding websites that pop up whenever you Google the name of your friend's sketchy new boyfriend, to these names that you may never have heard of. But what all these companies have in common is they collect your personal information and then resell or share it with others. As one expert puts it, they're the middlemen of surveillance capitalism, which sounds like both a horrific profession and also a B-plus Jake Gyllenhaal thriller. He's not a spy and he's not a civilian, he's the middleman. And ladies, in this one, he shows trunk. And look, I know it is not news that you get tracked online. In fact, roughly 6 in 10 US adults say that they don't think it is possible to go through daily life without having data collected about them by companies or the government, making 4 out of 10 US adults embarrassingly wrong. But this isn't just about the convenience and/or irritation of targeted ads. Data brokers operate in a sprawling, unregulated ecosystem which can get very creepy very fast.
The major US retailer OfficeMax knew not only that Mike Say's daughter was dead, but how she died.
It says Mike Say, daughter killed in car crash, or current business, and this is my home. Why would they have that kind of information? Why would they need that?
Right, and obviously that is completely appalling, but I will say it is not that surprising to me that OfficeMax was behind that, as they're clearly not entirely on top of their shit. If you Google OfficeMax right now, the people also ask questions include, and this is true, is OfficeMax the same as Office Depot? Is OfficeMax and Staples the same? And does OfficeMax exist? The truth is, when it comes to data brokers, they know significantly more about you than you might like and do significantly more with it than you might think. So tonight, let's talk about the whole industry. And let's start with how your information is collected. Basically, every time you interact with society, you are leaving little breadcrumbs that can be gathered together and sold. And much of this happens online, thanks in large part to cookies. Cookies were developed in the early days of the internet, and they're actually one of the things that make it slightly better, a distinction that they share with Henry Winkler's Twitter feed and literally nothing else. What they essentially do is enable websites to remember you. They are why Amazon remembers that you put a $106 complete box set of The Mentalist in your cart after eating an unexpectedly strong weed gummy, even if you don't. And if that's all cookies did, it'd honestly be fine. But the practice gradually evolved to include third-party cookies. Basically, companies other than the site that you are on, planting a piece of code in your browser that allows them to track where else you are going on the internet. Just watch as a tech writer explains what they found when they tried to learn just how many companies were tracking them.
So I started the day on Google and did a search, and 9 trackers were downloaded onto my computer. Trackers do what it sounds like they do. They track you. They can get my IP address or the device I'm using or the screen size. They were able to determine my location very precisely. Next, I went to HuffPo, and I was swarmed. The trackers kind of multiplied. There were dozens and dozens. And the trackers are just kind of, on my heels as I go around the web.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I don't want a whole crowd of strangers watching what I search for on the internet. Not because it's gross, because it's private. Private doesn't have to mean gross. There's nothing gross about looking up, let's say, are there any shower heads with a contains pulp option? I wouldn't want it all the time. I wouldn't need it all the time. That's why it's an option. The option to have some pulp in the shower. Can I finish? It's a normal shower most of the time, but occasionally I'll have the option to get pelted with something that's got some heft to it. Just some weighted chunks of whatever. Thwomp, thwomp, thwomp. Something to wake me up and keep me on my toes. Sometimes I need it. Don't claim that you don't. We'd all love to pretend that the sun only rises in peacetime, but things being what they are, we find ourselves again at war. So yeah, start my day and rock me with some juicy bits. That's what I want. And I don't want anyone watching me when I search to see how close we are to that particular technology existing, because it is private. But data brokers often take all the breadcrumbs that they have gathered about you, pair them with other data they can obtain, and then share all of it with businesses who want to market to you. And they will frame this as a win-win. Here is how Epsilon, one of the biggest data broker firms, positions itself.
This is a person. So is this. Here's another, and another. They all look and act different, but people are fundamentally the same. They all want respect, protection, and an easier time getting the things they need from brands.
Right, the big three. It's all in Maslow's famous hierarchy of needs. People want their physiological needs met, their safety accounted for, and their search history handed over directly to the Aflac duck. Epsilon's ad even goes on to show how that particular service of theirs works, demonstrating how they can create a client ID for someone that contains everything they know about them, like the fact they're a vegan and that they make $45,000 to $50,000 a year, or that they are a 41-year-old male who is married with kids at home and is Googling snow globe stuck in butt, what to do, ? And once companies like Epsilon collect enough information about you, they can sort you into groups. Data broker firms sell access to lists with names like couples with clout, ambitious singles, boomers and boomerangs, potlucks and the great outdoors, golf carts and gourmets, and kids and cabernet. Those are all both real names of groups compiled by a data broker and, as of now, immediately greenlit shows on TLC. And look, you might not care if a company wants to toss your data in a group called Kids and Cabernet so marketers can more effectively sell you things that make you seem like a bad mom in a fun way. But there is also a dark side here, because some companies can and do draw up even more narrowly targeted lists, like people with certain ailments or sexual preferences, and then sell those lists to anyone who wants to buy them. And what they can buy is pretty troubling.
WRAL bought thousands of names and addresses of local people with serious illnesses. This group living in the 27607 zip code have diabetes. These people in 27608 have cancer. These residents of 27609 have high blood pressure. And all of these locals battle depression. This list is moms-to-be.
So we bought this data, and it tells us you're pregnant.
Yes.
And you are.
I am. Yeah, I am 18 weeks.
That's pretty creepy, isn't it? I honestly did not think there could be a worse thing to ask a woman you don't know than, are you pregnant? But you are pregnant, want to know who I paid to find out, has certainly entered the chat. And if you're thinking, but that's illegal under HIPAA, right? Well, no. As one researcher pointed out, the medical information that you relay to your physician is highly protected, but if you go to a medical website and search for terms like HIV or abortion, that information is not protected at all. It's a system that seems ripe for abuse before you learn that some data brokers have offered lists such as suffering seniors, payday loan central, Hispanic, or even help needed, I am 90 days behind on bills. And some in this industry will insist that they would never put people at risk by selling their data. Remember Epsilon, the company that collects clouds of information about you? In 2014, their then CEO even went on 60 Minutes to reassure people that his business in particular operated in a completely above-board manner.
If there are abuses out there, we don't believe those happen within our company, and we would be the first to raise our hand.
Oh, really? You would be the first to raise your hand, would you? That is interesting, especially because last year, Epsilon settled with the DOJ for $150 million for facilitating elder fraud schemes after admitting that it sold more than 30 million consumers' data to clients who employees knew were carrying out scams. And they were doing it for nearly a decade. So I guess that guy really should have been doing that entire interview with his fucking hand in the air. And at this point, you may be thinking, okay, I think I get it. I am sufficiently creeped out. There is nothing more that you need to tell me. Well, hold on. What about the fact that apps on your phone can give away your exact location to third parties, sometimes without you even knowing it? This free flashlight app settled with the FTC for doing just that, and they are not alone. Take Life360, an app giving families the opportunity to keep track of one another. You may have seen their ads featuring parents looking relieved because they can see where their kids are going and know when they have safely reached their destination. Well, guess what?
In a report from the website The Markup says that Life360 sells its location data to about a dozen different brokers, who then sell it to marketers.
Yeah, it turns out they were selling location data to around 12 different brokers. It's like those old commercials. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Because if so, same. And I have to tell you, Life360 insists that they are no longer doing that and that anyway they had de-identified their users' data before selling it. That last claim is actually very common among both data brokers and the companies that they work with, and it is worth taking a look at, because while it sounds reassuring, the truth is it can be incredibly easy to find out who is behind a number or a code. One team of researchers even found that 99.98% of Americans would be correctly re-identified in any data set using just 15 demographic attributes, among them age, gender, and marital status. And the ease of de-anonymizing data is something that we have actually known about for years.
In 2006, AOL turned over a bunch of these anonymized search records of their users to the public. And it only took a few short hours for a reporter to decode who user number 4417749 was. Between searches for things like numb fingers, 60 single men, and dog that urinates on everything, the reporter uncovered a woman named Thelma Arnold. She was age 62.
Okay, I am not saying that it is at all pleasant that that happened, but for the record, I am glad that it introduced me to Thelma Arnold, because I love that woman. She hasn't given up, despite her numb fingers, lackluster love life, and utterly broken dog. None of that is stopping her from shooting her shot and looking for single men in her area. We stan a middle-aged queen with stamina. As we looked into this story, we constantly got reminders that none of us are really anonymous online. At one point, a researcher clicked on this company's website, didn't do anything else, just went there on his browser, and later that day got this email saying that they knew he visited and that we offer a pretty cool service called Website Visitor Identification, which helps brands identify who's browsing their website. In fact, it's how we knew how to send you this quick email, which is just objectively unsettling. I don't want anyone tracking what my staff members are doing online, mainly because I don't want to know how many of them have looked up what is John Oliver like. And it is not like data brokers are super careful about who gets your sensitive information. You have already seen a local news station ambush a pregnant woman, and a few years ago, CBS bought some location data from brokers, and it did not take much for them to find out whose it was, where they lived, and what they were doing.
No names or phone numbers were tied to the data, but it was easy to figure out who each phone belongs to based on where they spend their nights here in Greenwich. One phone pinged in the morning inside a $7 million mansion. The person then visited a country club before heading downtown and returning home.
Yeah, that doesn't feel great, does it? Although I will say that particular example is not that surprising to me. If you told me an individual woke up in a $7 million mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut and made me guess where they went next, I'd have gone with, I don't know, a country club, downtown to hunt humans for sport and then home again. And I'd have been pretty sure that I was right. And the thing is, that kind of identifying information can cause huge problems. Just last year, a priest was forced to resign after a Catholic newsletter said it used app data signals from Grindr to monitor his activity and matching his phone to his residence, essentially outing him, which is a massive, harmful invasion of privacy and definitely the worst scandal ever to hit the Catholic Church. Also, just quick side note here. Catholic Church, are you absolutely sure that Jesus was homophobic? Think about it. He had mutually respectful friendships with women, a distant relationship with his father, and when he found out he was going to be betrayed, he invited everyone to a confrontational dinner. I'm just saying it might be worth re-examining your thesis there. And look, you might still think, I don't care about this. My life is an open book. I have no secrets, so data brokers can just have at it. Even if that is true for you, though, Consider that there are others out there who might have very good reasons to not want to be found.
Donna is a domestic violence victim. We're protecting her identity. One of her addresses came up on a data broker site. She says that's frightening.
If you have someone that's tried to kill you, for them to be able to just type in your name and any known address that you've ever stayed in can pop up, it's scary because now they know ways to start trying to find you.
Right, and that's not just theoretical, it has happened. In New Hampshire, a stalker killed a former classmate after finding her with information that he bought from a data broker for $45. And if you have a stalker or you're a victim of domestic violence, it is understandable to want your information removed from these people search sites. Unfortunately, each has its own specific and sometimes very complex process of requesting the removal of information. And there is no federal law requiring that they honour an opt-out request at all. And the lack of regulation here doesn't just benefit individuals who might mean you harm, it benefits the government too, because it gives them a very attractive loophole to the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, because under that, the government typically needs a warrant to collect information about you without your consent. But if it is not forcing someone to turn over your data, if it's simply buying it from a data broker, that is apparently fine, no warrant necessary. And you can see how valuable that would be to them. It happens all the time. In fact, federal agencies from the FBI to ICE have purchased data without warrants, public disclosures, or robust oversight to carry out everything from criminal investigations to deportations. And the thing is, you might not know if your information has been supplied to the government by an app. Even the company behind the app might not know, because it might sell your info to a broker, which then resells it to someone else, which then supplies it to the government. I'll give you an example. A couple of years back, Vice found that the app Muslim Pro, which lets Muslims know when to pray, have been selling user location data to a broker that supplied information to the US government. And while because the chain is so opaque, it is hard to know what exactly was sold or what the government did with it, the app's users were understandably pretty alarmed.
Feeling disturbed, appalled, but not surprised.
Sarah Mustafa used Muslim Pro. That app has since reportedly severed ties with its data partners.
So intrusive. You know, my conversation with God is not information that the government needs.
Yeah, of course it's not information the government needs. There is a reason the book wasn't called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and Homeland Security's on the line as well. Hope that's cool. So to recap here, we've got shady data brokers with virtually no oversight, collecting your data and building profiles that can track who you are, where you are, and what you are most likely to do or buy. You cannot edit this dossier, and others from cops to reporters to your own abusers can find and use this information. It's not a great situation. So, what do we do? Well, it is a bit tricky, especially given the fact that the entire economy of the internet right now is basically built on this practice. All the free stuff that you take for granted online is only free because you are the product. They make money by selling your data. But experts say that there are actually some small steps that you can personally take. You can use web browsers like these to help better protect you against third-party tracking. And if you have an iPhone, you can go to the privacy menu, hit the tracking button, and turn off Allow Apps to Request to Track. But this should not be your responsibility. Your privacy should be the default setting here. And there should be legal fixes to this. Other countries have actually tried. The EU passed a law to force sites to disclose cookies and allow you to opt out. But, I will say, companies now often cleverly present those options in the most annoying way possible, with accept all cookies and easy default, but if you want to reject them, forcing you to go through multiple confusing steps for no clear reason, which is very smart, to be honest. No one is going to put in the work to reject cookies just to sneak a peek at an article titled 5 times Andrew Garfield just was. You'd much rather just hit accept and enjoy your remaining time on this earth gazing at the most emotionally connected Spider-Man to ever splooge the ooze. Now, as for here in the US, individual states have tried to limit data brokers, but advocates say that what is really needed is a comprehensive federal privacy law governing them. This has been proposed for years now, but nothing has happened for a couple of key reasons. First, data broker spending on lobbying in 2020 rivaled that of Facebook and Google, but also politicians now famously build their campaigns on data obtained from brokers. Both parties regularly boast about how much they use data. In fact, just listen to former RNC chair Reince Priebus openly bragging about it.
Everything about almost every potential voter in Georgia is known, and it's not even a joke. They know what beer they drink, what car they drive, how many kids they have, and all that data is used to target every single voter in Georgia.
It's true. Politicians rely on data to be able to target our interests with pinpoint precision. Although, therefore, I do wonder why no presidential candidate has yet targeted me personally with ads promising to fight for the shower of morning chunks that I so richly deserve. I Google it all the time. You would have my vote instantly. But it is very frustrating that the people who could do something about data brokers are so actively incentivized not to. But here is where we may actually be able to help, because, interestingly, the one time that Congress has acted quickly to safeguard people's privacy was in the 1980s, when Robert Bork was nominated to the Supreme Court and a reporter walked into a local video store and asked the manager whether he could have a peek at Bork's video rental history, and he got it. As soon as Congress realised there was nothing stopping anyone from retrieving their video rental records too, they freaked the fuck out. And lo and behold, the Video Privacy Protection Act was passed with quite deliberate speed. So it seems when Congress's own privacy is at risk, they somehow find a way to act. And it also seems like they're not entirely aware just how easy it is for anyone, and I do mean anyone, to get their personal information, which brings me to me. Because in researching this story, we realised there is any number of perfectly legal bits of fuckery that we could engage in. We could, for example, use data brokers to go fishing for members of Congress by creating a demographic group consisting of men aged 45 and up in a 5-mile radius of the US Capitol who had previously visited sites regarding or searched for terms including divorce, massage, hair loss and midlife crisis. We could...
Hey, look alive, buddy.
Done for now. Come on. Right. I'm so glad you decided to go ahead with it. You know, you're going to be part of something truly amazing. He's a genius, Hush. And this is groundbreaking research. It's an honor, really. But he's under a lot of pressure these days, so if you could just go along with it, okay? He's ready for you, Hush.
He looks strong. A good specimen to conclude this phase.
So, the test subject came to his senses, I see. Good.
Sister Lei, yes. We're about to perform the final test of this project phase. Take a seat.
Hello, sir. Ready when you are.
Junli, let's start at 100% signal strength.
No. I mean, no, there's no need. The subject is clean, cooperative. I was thinking 25% and then adjust if necessary.
60% is minimum. We'll get no motor control below, and I'm not wasting my time.
But...
60. Log concluding experiment H109 initiated. Run calibration 60%.
Signal strength 60% confirmed. H109 initiated.
Load suggestion, motor control 44.1. Execute.
The signal's too low. Shh. The signal's too weak. We'll get nothing like this.
Go to 100%?
It's not safe. You've been working too hard. With your condition, it can cause you real physical harm.
It's safe. You're strong. You can overcome it.
100%. Do it. Log, continuing experiment H109. Run calibration 100%.
H109 initiated at 100% signal strength.
Good. All good to go. Identify impulse string. Load suggestion. Motor control. 44.1. Execute.
Nothing. He is a strong one.
I can get to him. Just need to focus. My head.
We need to go higher.
Quiet. I can't focus.
Abort! You're going too far.
No. He's on the verge to break him. Go higher.
It'll kill him. It's already way beyond reasonable intensity. This subject is abnormally resistant.
He's no match for Hush. Nothing worth shit ever came to be without pain.
I am calling it quits, Hush. You need rest.
Okay. A short break. I'll return with a clear head.
God damn that assistant. If they'd up the signal, it will kill him.
Stay put or stay close. I want you in that chair when Hush and Sister Lei return.
I'm here to the end.
We're here with Noah Coleman, tech editor of Vice News.
Hey. If it was tech editor of Vice, it would just be like, I took mushrooms and played Final Fantasy for 40 hours.
Did you get to do any cool shit like that for your job?
No comment.
Okay.
I don't want to expose agents in the field.
We're here to talk tech. But before we get there, I want to talk our tech, because we're now at Chapo Mark II. This is our first episode with... We're here with Noah Coleman, tech editor of Vice News.
Hey. If he was tech editor of Vice, it would just be like, I took mushrooms and played Final Fantasy for 40 hours.
Did you get to do any cool shit like that for your job?
No comment.
Okay.
I don't want to expose agents in the field.
We're here to talk tech. But before we get there, I want to talk our tech, because we're now at Chapo Mark II. This is our first episode with our new professional audio setup. So you may hear in this new quality of audio that I, in fact, don't sound anything like Ben Shapiro. I have a full, deep, manly voice. And that, like, you know, our heavy breathing will just sound all the more like we're lying next to you.
Yeah, I'm not, because I'm not, like, leaning into the mic to be heard, I'm more relaxed. More racial slurs may just slip out because I'm in my easy chair and I go, ooh, you know what I call Turkish people? I call them half Arabs.
And no matter what happens, I know that you will all keep telling me that my audio sucks because you're in a massive program of gaslighting that I do not fucking appreciate.
No, like I said, I want to talk about Silicon Valley, the culture and ideology of Silicon Valley, with someone who knows what they're talking about. But first, I need to ask you, Noah, what I think is the most important question related to this topic, and that is, what is up with Elizabeth Holmes's voice?
Yeah,
it's got to be a put on, right?
People don't even know that they have a basic human right to be able to get access to information about themselves and their own bodies that can change their lives.
I honestly, I have no idea. Her whole personality, her like public affect, it's like, I don't get it. Where did she get the surgery to get the anime eyes? I'm not
sure. I don't. I think it's all natural.
Ghost in the blood centrifuge. You know what I like about Elizabeth Holmes? She sounds like Lauren Lavoie. You know why blood tests don't come with erasers? Because you can't change what's in your hemoglobin.
No. I mean, like we should get the audio edited in. But there's this clip from her going on Mad Money. This is like when the scandal sort of was.
This is when she first went on to like defend her honor.
And I think she chose Mad Money because she was like, well, Jim Cramer's a friend or something. Or
well, I mean, Jim, because everyone looks like 100 times saner, like next to Jim Cramer.
Okay.
Like if she went on like on PBS, you would like. I'm not so sure it would have gotten the same reception, but yeah, she looked normal comparatively.
Yeah, Jim Cramer's got his fucking sleeves like rolled up to half his shoulders. He's got coke drip. Just fucking violently rubbing his nose, and he's like, "Wow, tell me about the blood test." And she's like, "Well, people are jealous."
No, she's going on there to like defend herself and the company. But I swear to God, like there is like a couple seconds about halfway through the interview where she drops the weird like dad voice that she does.
We put on our website that we do venous testing. So blood draws from the arm the traditional way. And starting in 2015, we announced, and it was published in San Francisco paper, in Fortune. I talked about it in an interview I did with Forbes, that we made a decision to...
Nick said her voice sounds like a kid calling their teacher, pretending to be their dad to get out of going to school.
Accurate.
Or she's like, well, obviously we're a company that has, more strict testing than anything. But, honestly, from time, it's really odd. It's like she drops it for a second, but...
Yeah, she sounds like Buffalo Jill.
Jim Cramer, is she a great big fat person?
What are you, about a type O negative?
Actually, no. This is a good. I want to ask you, like, can you give to our listeners like the executive summary of the amazing Theranos catastrophe and scandal?
Yeah. So like the story goes back like a decade. So
she's been working on this for a long time.
So Elizabeth Holmes, most normal people, boring people. When you go to college, you go to your freshman classes, you go to your math class, your gender class, your second gender class, your third gender class, and then
bathroom.
But Elizabeth Holmes, she realized very quickly that she was meant for more, and so she went and she linked up with a chemical engineering professor, something like that. And
this is all at Stanford, right?
Yeah, she's at Stanford, and she comes up with like this big idea, and her big idea is, what if we could do blood testing cheaper and with no needles? And she I don't know whether it's true or if it's part of the mythology, but somehow she has a fear of needles, gets worked in at some point along the way. But so she's like 19. She's like 19 years old, and in like classic Silicon Valley fashion, she's like, there is this incredibly well-regulated industry that involves the health and livelihoods of millions of people in this country, and I could totally do it better. And I may have the chemistry expertise of what you would expect a 19-year-old to have, but by God, I'm going to make this work. And so she launches Theranos, and so she is able to raise money from, and this is kind of interesting, she went around and raised money from a group of investors, none of whom were considered, one of which is a well-known investor, DFJ, Draper Fisher Jurvetson, and they're a well-known investor mainly from the last .com bubble, but everyone else, it was Larry Ellison's personal venture fund. It was kind of a weird group, but whatever. She raises the money, and over a number of years, she raises progressively larger rounds that set the company's value ultimately at $9 billion. That means that on paper, Elizabeth Holmes was worth $4.5 billion. So the line that you kept hearing over all these years was that Elizabeth Holmes is the world's youngest self-made female billionaire, which she leaned the fuck in. She's on the conference circuit. Everyone loves her startup, except nobody knows what Theranos' technology actually does. They Theranos, she's very vague about all of it. And they signed a partnership deal with Walgreens, and they get blood testing centers in Walgreens in Arizona. She worked out some deal with those regulators. The Cleveland Clinic, a prestigious medical institution, links up with them in some capacity. And ultimately, last October, a Wall Street Journal.
It's all here. Clients, operatives, every hit the ICA ever sanctioned. Enough to shut them down for good. But first you need to locate all files referencing Diana and yourself. Go way back. I didn't realize that I don't know. I get why you want to protect her. So, wipe all the data referring to the two of you from their system before we publish the rest. I've set up a link to an information nonprofit site. When you press that button, it's up there and the whole world will know. There's no undo 47. This will shut the ICA down for good. You really okay with this? It's who you've been for so long.
Maybe it's time for a change.
I'll just return things to normal. No need to alert them we were here prematurely.
Safety solution detected. Lockdown and safety.
Shit! I missed that. We're blown 47. I can hold the doors for a little while. Use the fence to get out. Go, now!
All personnel, breach protocol initiated.
This is bad. That means they'll shoot on sight. I'm gonna create some havoc, 47. Make the core melt down. Maybe we'll divert their attention a bit.
Warning. Core overheating. Warning, core shut down. Temperature critical.
Robbie, what's on your radar?
Well, we know that the Twitter files have exposed the federal government's efforts to compel a private company, Twitter, to censor speech that was disfavored by the national intelligence agencies, national health experts, and elites in the mainstream media. Despite the protections of the First Amendment, which provides that the government may not stop people from speaking, various government actors have worked tirelessly to silence speech for years, taking special aim at so-called misinformation related to elections, Hunter Biden, COVID, and more. Now, thanks to efforts by Matt Taibbi, Michael Schellenberger, Barry Weiss, Lee Fang, and of course Twitter's new CEO himself, Elon Musk, we have now seen behind the curtain. We have seen so many emails from would-be censors in government reaching out to Twitter, politely suggesting that this account is Russian in origin and up to no good, that this other account is wrong about the COVID vaccines and it's going viral and that's a danger, that this joke about what day the election takes place on, well, that could be misinterpreted by a gullible person. The government would love if Twitter would do something to fix this. Government bureaucrats know they can't make Twitter do it, but they can complain. Then they can leak the situation to their friends in the mainstream media who'll write negative stories about Twitter, and they can make sure those stories provide ammunition for Democratic legislators who just so happen to be looking at new regulations that could hurt Twitter's bottom line. Continuing dispatches from the Twitter files have actually undermined an early impression formed by so many people, myself included, about content moderators at Twitter. Namely, Yoel Roth, former head of Twitter Trust and Safety. Roth was initially portrayed as a villain in all this for taking part in some admittedly bad content moderation calls, including the decision to restrict the Hunter Biden laptop story under a hacked materials justification. Very bad. But after reading all those emails from law enforcement, national intelligence, health advisors, it's clear that Roth actually did put up some resistance, and as did his colleagues. Their resolve was simply worn down over time by the tone of the government's messages. The government was insistent that Twitter was besieged by evil Russian influence, that Twitter's failure to control COVID misinformation was going to get millions killed, that the mainstream media and Democratic lawmakers would work in tandem to gut Twitter if the platform failed to take action against such pressure. It's really not surprising that government bureaucrats eventually got their way, and in the future, opponents of big tech censorship need to focus more on the big government side of all of this. To that end, new evidence is emerging that shows, unsurprisingly, that Twitter was not the only target of the U.S. government, which is unsurprising, as part of a lawsuit against the Biden administration for pressuring social media companies to take down contrarian COVID speech. Missouri's Attorney General obtained this email sent by a White House staffer to Facebook moderators. It reads, the top post about vaccines today is Tucker Carlson saying they don't work. Yesterday was Tomi Lahren saying she won't take one. This is exactly why I want to know what reduction looks like. If reduction means pumping our most vaccine-hesitant audience with Tucker Carlson saying it doesn't work, then I'm not sure it's reduction. A White House staffer also flagged specific contrarian Facebook posts for deletion. The White House was obsessed with what kinds of opinions were being offered, not just on Twitter, but obviously on Facebook as well. They don't think whether the vaccines work is a subject one could hold a variety of views on, even though it's certainly true that the vaccines work to differing degrees depending on what we're talking about. Are we talking about severe disease and death, or are we talking about simply the COVID spread? And it matters a little bit whether we're talking about vulnerable people or whether we're talking about young people. None of these distinctions mattered to the career bureaucrats who were in conversation every single day with content moderators at all the major speech platforms. Stay tuned for a big investigation that I've been working on this subject. That'll be coming later this month. But in the meantime, I want to talk more about, what we've seen from these emails, Batya, the Twitter files, and then this email showing that, well, of course, it was happening with Facebook as well. Tucker Carlson, Tomi Lahren, Tucker's a Fox News person. Tomi has, I think, she's also part of Fox, I think on the Fox Nation platform and some other places. Yeah. Outkick, yeah. Two people, conservative voices who were raising questions about the efficacy of the vaccines. I'm sure they've said things about COVID and about the vaccines that I personally don't agree with, that I don't think are supported by the evidence, as has basically everyone who's ever offered an opinion on this thing, given that the reality is ever changing, including what the elites and the health experts said is now vastly different. What's true is vastly different than what they said in the first place. So it seems pretty egregious and baffling to me that the White House would spend significant time, don't they have better things to do? Just emailing Twitter and Facebook all day saying, hey, can you take this down? Hey, this isn't exactly right. Hey, we're really worried about this. What's your problem?
Yeah, so a number of questions come to mind for me. The first is there a difference for you in how they handled the Hunter Biden laptop story and how they handled COVID? To me, the difference there is very much a difference of intention. Like with COVID, you could say, I don't think it was right what they did in either case. But you could argue with COVID that they were trying to save lives, that they felt that people not taking the vaccine was going to put them in danger, right? But with Hunter Biden, it was clearly just their political adversaries. They really, really, really didn't want Trump to win, right? So that's the first question I have. Is there a moral difference and a legal difference between those two things from your point of view? The second question I have is the one I've had from the beginning, which is, if law enforcement asks you to do something wrong, right? What level of freedom of speech do you still have in making that decision? What level of authority and autonomy did Yoel Roth have here? At what point does it become coercion? And are you convinced that threshold has been met? And of course, the third question would be, how are we supposed to judge this going forward as a nation? The church committee that was one of these conditions that McCarthy has agreed to in order to convince the holdouts to vote for him as speaker, do you think that that is going to address these larger questions? So those are my 3 questions for you.
I do think the threshold has been reached. I mean, I think it's a matter for debate. It's in my opinion, it's been reached. I think between the pressure, the constant pressuring from so many different government agencies, and then at the same time, there's going to be a regulatory push, and then people in the Biden White House raising the prospect of doing regulation if they don't get enough compliance from social media companies. That seems to me to be, now we're on the other side of the First Amendment. I could be wrong. I think that's something a court should take up. That is something a court is going to take up given this lawsuit from Missouri and other states. Your first question is very interesting, and this is something I've tried to engage with at least. Is there a difference between the pressuring on COVID speech and the pressuring on Hunter Biden? I could actually see it the other way from you, and you're kind of suggesting that the Hunter Biden stuff is just so nakedly political, where there's like a compared to the COVID stuff, well, they might have been wrong and maybe they shouldn't have done it, but their intentions were more benign. I see it, I guess, slightly differently. I think we all accept that there's some legitimacy, at least, to law enforcement talking to social media companies about crimes happening on social media sites, organized crime, terrorism, et cetera, being organized on the platform from like a national security, foreign policy standpoint. Now, obviously, the deep state went so awry on this and was so wrong about so many things. And, they're telling Twitter this is Russian origin, and Twitter saying, we're looking at this. We really don't think it is. And then eventually they're like, okay, if you say so.
Ed Zitron. Ed, what's going on?
Nothing much, just sitting here imagining planes controlled by USB drives which have Osama bin Laden on it. The usual. I mean, it's usually what I get up to on my free time. It's wonderful to be here. I love Chapo Trap House. The last thing I heard before being violently slammed with another car.
Yeah, you got into an accident on the Bay Bridge listening to us, right?
Yeah, shortly after the discussion of the employment benefits plan for the Joker's employees.
Well, yeah, you're on the Bay Bridge, but you're also, a Silicon Valley guy. That's why we're having you on the show. And you're also, I gotta say, you're also the co-host of Felix's other podcast, the Scumbag Podcast. Which I gotta say, I wish you would stop doing. I'm worried about our beautiful boy Felix. I think he's overextended himself and needs to cut down on the number of podcasts he's hosting.
Well, he does around 417 a week. I don't know if I disagree, but the Scumbag is a good therapeutic exercise for him.
I'll tell you when I've had enough.
I can quit whenever I want.
Yeah.
The topic we were discussing on this week's show is tech and Silicon Valley. And what I want to do with you is we want to have you on. I want to do a reading series with you.
Yes.
And we need your input on this piece that was on the Daily Beast this week under the vertical of Politics 2.0. And this is sort of like a tech guy manifesto about how to, quote, disrupt the Democratic and Republican parties the way Uber has eviscerated the taxi business.
About goddamn time.
It's one of the most malformed pieces I've ever read.
I was hoping you could help us sort of translate into human a lot of what this guy's saying. But maybe for our listeners, could you give us an idea of what you do and your connection to the tech world?
So for about 8 years, I made yet another mistake in my life, and I became a technology publicist. And somehow along the way, my broken brain did not quite stay broken, so I stayed as a shithead on Twitter. Anyway, I help people get on the internet or whatever for money. It's good business. It allows me to hide from the world. And I do, but more importantly to the conversation, I do live in Oakland. I work in San Francisco. I've been around the valley for a while now, both living here and not living here. And I actually have to say this piece is amazing on so many levels in its myopia, but also its self-confusion. This is a guy having an identity crisis as you read it. And it's just amazing. It really is.
It's one of the maddest things I think I've ever read, and I think we just need to do it justice by just diving in. The title of the piece is, like I said, the title is "Time to Take a Silicon Valley Hammer to the Two-Party Duopoly." It's by a guy named Dave Manny. Are you been familiar with Dave Manny's work before this?
I remember reading one of his other shit pieces, and I love as well that he's not actually he's like the worst kind of Silicon Valley person in that he doesn't fucking live there. He lives in like Denver. And
I'm looking at his bio now, and it says Dave Manny writes about the information-driven economic revolution we're all living through, and is founder and CEO of Colorado-based Deke Digital.
I am so fucking hard right now.
No, Ed, have you done any PR work on behalf of Deke Digital?
Well, they're a marketing firm, and if they called me, I'd definitely take the call, but I'd invite possibly everyone on this podcast onto it and claim you're all like my advisors.
No, I actually looked into Deke Digital. I'm on their website right now, and it says, we help clients create and distribute expert commentary from major media outlets. And now the other thing you notice immediately about Deke Digital is they have one of the worst logos I've ever seen for what is ostensibly a tech or tech-related company. It's just sort of like these like plain blue letters that are dotted with red dots. And it just makes me think of like a tampon company or something like that.
Well, I'm a fucking idiot, so I sat down and I went, right, I'm going to find out why it's called Deke Digital. And it's something to do with hockey.
It's a sports term, yeah.
Sports. And like every fucking marketing person does sports analogies. It's like full court press. Like some sort of Rain Man like tick. Like definitely full court press. Definitely touchdown, Hail Mary. And so his logo, I think, is trying to be like a hockey puck going around an X. But his like
it looks like one of those things like when the TV commentators, they draw on the screen to like break down a football play. That's kind of what it looks like. But I guess it's a hockey term that he's going for.
I was more thinking it looks like one of those pharmaceutical commercials. So it's like the X is like when you take these 3 pills, your cholesterol goes down. The cholesterol's the X.
The X is depression that follows you everywhere.
The X is your morals.